I can't believe I've been living here for 2 weeks, and I'm walking around this place thinking I've got a huge doucher for a stepbrother. Secretly, you're not a doucher.
Let's play a game, all right? On the count of 3, name your favorite dinosaur. Don't even think about it. Just name it. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Velociraptor.
Favorite non-pornographic magazine to masturbate to.
Good housekeeping.
If you were a chick, who's the one guy you would sleep with?
John Stamos.
What? Did we just become best friends?
Yup.
Do you want to go do karate in the garage?
Yup.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Brickedpit. I'm your host today, Jason, and as you heard last session, I was gone. I was on assignment, as Josh says, in Bogota. Speaking of Josh, by the way, they didn't have industrial strength BC powder like you asked me for.
Well, did you bring some kind of white powdery substance back?
The dogs really seemed to like it on the way back.
It's vitamins for dogs.
And Adam's not with us this week because he didn't believe me when I told him that they wouldn't sell me a plane ticket for an Escobar hippo to come back. So he's on his own personal mission now.
What I like about that intro is that it proves that you actually listened to the episode that you weren't a part of. So,
unlike my other co-hosts.
Yeah, thank you for driving up that listen.
The one on record.
I was wondering. I've been trying to figure out all week who listened. Now I know.
Yes, the episode that Adam's been wanting to do for years, and you guys spent about as much time talking about me as you did Ridley Scott.
You're probably more important to us than Ridley Scott. So,
well, I know who you guys actually are. So,
Ridley and I had beef back in the day. So. We both eat at Arby's is what I mean at some point in our lives.
It's a real dark days. So what we wanted to talk about this week, we've said it time and time again here about how important films are to not just us, but to a lot of people. Like there's something about the media that we consume that kind of defines us as people. And it also kind of extends out to the people that we want to associate with. I know Josh and I are real good friends, not just simply because we love movies. We met in movie school, but because we liked the same kind of movies. Like we were two guys, not just movies, but TV shows. I think like we were the only two people that knew about Tales of the Gold Monkey. Yeah. Just like no one else knew what the hell we were talking about. We're talking about this one season show from like the early 80s.
Pre-Wikipedia. Like there was no way to prove that it actually existed.
Yeah, there weren't just random clips on YouTube or anything like that. Just see, that's it right there.
You just had to know.
Yeah, you yelled out into the void until someone yelled back.
Yeah, people are tribal by nature. Yeah. I mean, we just are. And the kind of movies we're going to talk about today, like our personal, I guess, like signpost for our totems for our tribe. It's almost like mimetic in a way, because if you toss out a quote, like, I've dissed on the Monty Python people, but I do the same thing, just not with Monty Python because I have better taste. But
you have a tendency to go for the obscure and then get angry at people who don't get your obscure references. And they get even angrier at them when you don't understand their references.
Is this a Sonny Berger situation?
Yes, this is a Sonny Berger situation. It's TV, it's movies, music especially. I think a lot of people define themselves by music a lot, especially, when we were growing up in the 90s. Like, you started to dress like the people in your favorite bands. Like we've said it before, Nevermind came out, and like 2 weeks later, everyone was wearing flannel.
I think in a lot of ways you can find more faceless people that are like-minded via the internet, but it's harder to make those one-on-one connections, because I was trying to explain to my kids one day, like, if a new album came out or there was a band that you were into, like, you would have to either have somebody in your car or at your house or go to their house and provide the physical media for the, you couldn't just say, hey, text them a link to YouTube. I mean, there was a physical presence required of you and the disc or the tape or whatever it was. So, like, that's gone now, and like with it, like, I don't think kids, they TikTok or Snapchat what they like, or there's not that like personal community, and you can see it that kind of dissolving with like the theaters kind of losing steam post COVID. Like, that cohesion is just not with us anymore.
There's something. It's like sharing books, and even giving somebody like a VHS tape or something like that, or a DVD. That there's also a little bit extra to it, because you're giving somebody a physical piece of like property that you own, and that you've also determined that you have some connection with, and you're sharing it with someone else. You're entrusting them. Yeah,
because there's no guarantee you'll get it back. I mean, I lost my favorite Dinosaur Jr. T-shirt to a girlfriend. I still lament that shirt loss. 30 years
Not the
later.
Loss of the girlfriend, but the loss of the shirt.
No. Yeah. Yes. 100%. It was an awesome shirt. Actually, my wife bought me a replacement that was a replica. So read into that what you will. But I was very appreciative to have the shirt back. But yeah, I mean, like, you lend somebody a book or a DVD or something, there's no guarantee you'll get it back. There's a bit more trust than sharing a link. By the way, go to our link tree and share our links.
What he means is spam it anywhere you can.
Yeah. Download it onto a thumb drive and leave it at a federal courthouse. Don't do that.
We find media that especially when we're younger and the teen years, we find media that we think kind of speaks for us when we can't a lot of times, or just a mood or thing. I said before when we did the favorites episode, I don't really have a favorite movie now, but there are times in my life, especially when I was younger, I did. Mm-hmm. When I was a kid, it was Empire Strikes Back, and I'd have to say teen years, it was The Crow.
Yeah.
Like, that was a very defining part of my, adolescence. And so, like, I would hear people, especially like older people, that just like, they couldn't get it. They're like, it was a weird movie. It's just like dead people coming back. I don't know what that was. And then there was almost, when I was younger, a feeling like that was almost a personal hit against me, because, how much I loved that movie and enjoyed, I bought the VHS tape when it came out for sale, which, those cost a pretty good penny too back then. We're talking, in the 90s, it'd be like $20 when they first came out.
Yeah.
Which, that's probably close to 50 now.
And we tend to imprint ourselves on those films too. Like, we read into them things that may not have been there, but they still become hyper personal. It's interesting too that a lot of this stuff does happen when you're younger, and we tend to have at least people that are media consumers. Kids really go through this, but like, I think people like us, it probably extends a little longer. Like, watch the same thing over and over again, and I think at some point, like, time starts pressing on you, and you're like, because we would watch bad movies over and over and over again. Back from Hell, we watched I don't know how many times, and then there comes a point where you're like, do I really? That's like an hour and a half. I've only got so many hours and a half left.
I just got off work. I got to cook dinner. I got to pick up the kids. Got laundry.
Do I really want to watch something I know is bad? Like, I think we can pass Xanadu today. They stay with us,
They're
encoded in our personality.
Even today, we don't watch Raiders of the Lost Ark as much as we used to, but we still vividly remember our favorite bits of those films. Like we can recite the quotes, the imagery of the Nazi's face melting off will always be with us. It's imprinted on us, even though we're like, we're not watching that right now. We're going to watch a half hour of something on Hulu and then go to bed.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, look, it's Frasier. One of my college roommates, that we're at the point in our lives where we see each other once a decade, but his wife gets really annoyed because, we pick up like it just left off. We just start automatically talking coded in references and shortcuts and stuff. And she's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. You're not making any sense. You're talking about bear suits. You're talking about, and it's like living memes. Like I said,
they create a language between people a lot of times. We're the generation like video games really started becoming a part of our daily lives. It went from being in arcades to being in our homes, and then from being one or two players to being all your friends come over and 4 people playing against each other in GoldenEye. There is some camaraderie and some connection there. So the main thing we want to kind of talk about today in connection to all that is because these pieces of media are, so important to us and create those links, that there's some movies, TV shows, music, whatever, that we use to kind of gauge our friendship with people, almost kind of like gatekeeping in a certain way. Like one of my choices, it's really far out in left field. So it's not like if you don't like it, you can't be my friend, or anything like that.
But it does keep you out of the inner sanctum.
Yeah, exactly. If you like it, you're getting the password to the tree fort.
Backstage pass to Jason Land.
You get to be a little bit like that weirder part of yourself that you kind of have to hold back, especially at work or something like that.
Right. You get to remove the mask a little bit. Like before we get into the films, this week we had plumbing issues, and so the plumber came. The first thing I noticed is like his ringtone was Super Mario Brothers, and it took me way too long to figure out it's because he was a plumber. I thought, he's a gamer. I was like, it's probably Mario was a plumber. But he saw my collection of board games, and he mentioned like Warhammer 40K, so we started talking about that and stuff. Then it's like the whole mood of the situation changed. Like, all right, you're a cool guy. I'll fix it right. Or I could do this, but I'll do it a good way and a cheap way at the same time. You're like, all right, yeah.
Almost like being a mason.
Yeah, it is. It's like I unlocked the secret handshake of the plumber, and so got the discount like da 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 da, like when Link opens up a chest.
The complete opposite direction of that. When I first moved into where I am now, and I had to have the gas company come and turn on the gas, and they have to check the water heater and all that kind of stuff. I saw that one of the guys had a tattoo, and the tattoo was of Frank Frazetta's Death Dealer character. And I was like,
that's pretty dope.
Yeah. I was like, dude, are you a Frank Frazetta fan? I was like, what? Like, your tattoo. That's Death Dealer. That's a Frank Frazetta painting. Oh, no, I saw it in a book. I liked it, so I just got a tattoo of it. It's like, you jerk. You don't deserve that tattoo.
I made a joke about somebody having a waifu at work. Now, I work in tech, but they're all like ex-military tech, which still should I'm like, what? You don't know what a waifu is? What are you, some kind of nerd? I was like, how dare you? You're a computer programmer. What is going on here?
Okay, you watch football on the weekends, but you're still...
Right.
Yeah.
What are we doing right now? What is the context of this? Let's not start slinging that word around.
I have let people borrow movies. How they've responded to them afterwards definitely determines our future interactions. I've had some people, the movie I'm going to talk about later, they watched it and it's just like, I don't get it. I was like, yeah, I understand that. Like I didn't give you Ghostbusters. I gave you something really weird, but the people who come back was like, that was one of the best movies I've ever saw, or that was hilarious, or whatever. It's like, all right, yeah. So let me just open up this chest here for some more weird stuff that falls in line with that, and see how far this friendship goes.
Well, and some people, it's like like you'll never get to that point. Like you're like, I'm not opening the closet so you can see all the weird stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it especially like with our families, like we've got very conservative, kind of traditional families, so you can't bring like the really outrageous stuff in and expect them to kind of fall for it and enjoy it. We're not doing Freaked,
Right?
Which was a really out there bonkers, and if anyone could ever find it, you definitely have to watch it.
Yeah, so whatever format you find it on, that is, I won't even say it's a good movie, but I love it.
Yes. It is just oddball. It's oddball for the sake of being an oddball film, and it does it perfectly.
It's one of those things to be like, oh, it's a stoner film, kind of, but it also, like, to me, a lot of those films are like, you watch it at 2:00 in the morning when you're like really tired trying to stay up, like in that weird zone before you go to sleep where you're kind of half asleep, and it's like, wow, that's perfect. Like,
yes. You don't know if what you're watching is actually part of the movie.
Yeah,
or just your own mind just messing with you.
But I think a lot of that too is an artifact of like our generation and us growing up watching like Up All Night and Night Flight and things like that. Because like we've talked about this before. I think back in the day, like staying up all night was just like, I don't know why. It was like that was just a thing that was like a challenge. And then that exposed me at least to all kinds of crazy stuff, like
all the really cool stuff was on later on. Saturday Night Live and all that you had to wait up for that stuff, and
then you got the weird like syndicated like Forever Night and stuff. Like just like bizarre Canadian TV show, the Red Green Show. Man, I ate that up.
Friday the 13th, the series. War of the Worlds, the series. Just the syndicated stuff from the late 80s, early 90s. Just
we've got Friday the 13th, the series on the way on DVD because we're going to start watching it with the kids.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Because I don't know, it's funny you brought that up because that came up like a couple of days ago. My wife was like, "Have you ever heard of Friday the 13th, the series?" I said, "Sit down. This is going to take a while." This is one of those conversations.
Hold on. Let me get the scrapbook.
Picture it, 1989.
The guy who created the Friday the 13th franchise wants to extend the IP, but he doesn't want to use the Jason Voorhees character on television.
It's Sunday night, Fox.
We like those old videos we used to watch in elementary school in the 80s, and just when it's time to go to the next slide, you just crank it over.
That or like Robert Stack in Unsolved Mysteries. Come out wearing a trench coat and there's smoke blowing behind me.
Yeah, let's go ahead and like kind of jump into the movies and everything that we use. I do want you to talk about, we just talked about this one at the beginning of the year, so we don't really need to get into the particulars of it, but I do want to kind of go into how you use this to gauge your friends and, why, what particular parts of it are you kind of seeing, or what reactions you're looking for.
I have no memory of talking about this at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, it's from 1984. That was my choice when we did the previous years.
Hey, it's a good movie.
It's a great movie.
We should talk about it on the podcast sometime.
Well, we do that right now, Josh.
Hey, I want to talk about 1984's Top Secret, a Abrams Zucker film before they split and didn't have another hit until Basketball. From the makers of Airplane, it is a Elvis war picture in East Germany, but like World War II is still going on, depending on what references they want to make.
Yeah, it's this great just hodgepodge of anything they want. Oh, we're in the 80s, but here's like Nazis and 50s and 60s rock and roll.
It is a very stream of consciousness film, and of all the Zucker Abrams pictures, it's my favorite because it's very much a filmmaker's funny movie. It relies so much on the language of film to produce the jokes. It like every shot is like a trick shot or something, like it's so like you kind of can't believe anything that you're watching. It has Omar Sharif has a small part in it, and he plays this spy in East Germany, in East Berlin or wherever, and he gets taken to. He's been found out, and his cab driver takes him to a junkyard, and he just says, "Driver, this isn't the Howard Johnsons." And for some reason, that's the funniest line I've ever heard in my life. Like, he delivers it with such like sincerity and confusion. And ever since I was a kid, it's like one of my favorite lines out of any movie. Well, I do remember talking about, because this does have my favorite joke of all time in it, the Leroy Neiman painting joke.
Yes.
They've tried everything. Do you want me to bring out the Leroy Neiman paintings?
No. We cannot risk violating the Geneva Convention.
But it's clever on all levels, but it's also like it's a certain type of humor. Like if you like Top Secret, I know that you like Kimmy Schmidt or 30 Rock or things that lean towards the absurd and play on words and mashing things together in a delightfully mad manner. It's very narrow crevasse to fly your T-16 Skyhopper through. It's very much like Beggar's Canyon.
There's the Josh references.
Full of 1 meter womp rats, which I don't think Lucas understood were 3 foot tall rats. That's a big rat, man.
So I think kind of what you're getting at, and yeah, that's kind of where I am too, is this, it's a brand of comedy that understands the boundaries, but has no problem pushing past them. They don't care about just the regular structure of jokes. They're willing to kind of play with that. And not only that, but have multiple gags going on at once.
Yes, they're very layered and it seems like chaos, but it is all incredibly well constructed. The other thing is it's like the old kind of sawhorse of you got to know the rules before you break the rules. Yeah. Top Secret is that they are very good filmmakers that leverage their knowledge of film to break those rules and break your expectations in a comedic fashion.
Yeah, and I think that's what some of the best comedians do, like stand-ups and improv and all that kind of stuff. They understand how to not just play on your expectations, but to kind of like lead you to certain expectations. And then at times they can either pay it off, and sometimes the humor comes with, well, how are they going to give like this exact punchline, or do the exact opposite of it?
Yeah, I think that's why like this humor is very akin to kind of Norm Macdonald-esque.
Yeah,
like just messing with the audience, and I guess in a weird way too, like Andy Kaufman, like the fun is being in on the joke, I guess, or being able to understand the joke. So it can lead to a little elitism in some ways. Somebody doesn't get it, you're like, oh, can't believe you didn't get. I'm just a little horse. And it's a little horse that was
he's talking and then suddenly was coughing.
He's just a little horse. Don't you get it?
You could also see like the influence of this with the Zucker brothers, and they were just period on like Family Guy. Like they lift heavily off this, and sometimes they don't even hide it. They just straight up swipe it. But also in Simpsons and a lot of other, I think the animated comedy you see now.
Yeah, it's what's strange is like Top Secret is almost like a great sampler of all types of humor, because there's non sequiturs, there's puns, there's visual humor, there's pratfalls, there's breaking of the aesthetics of film. Like all happening at once.
Yeah, and it also, sometimes it gets a little bawdy and.
Oh yeah.
So.
I watched this movie when it came out in 1984. I was 9, maybe.
Were you 9 in 1984?
No, hang on. Let me do the math.
Oh, good Lord! This is Josh Weakness's math.
I was 7. And I saw this in the movie theater with my parents. So luckily I was too stupid to figure out, like watching it later, I was like, oh my God, that's like really on the nose, and it went over my head. But I do appreciate, this was the first film that kind of like was breaking the fourth wall, where he talks about this all plot seems like it's all like a bad movie, and they both slowly turn towards the camera. Man, that just like, that broke my brain. I became a cinema junkie after that. Then the next week we went and saw The Man with One Red Shoe, and I hated film. So
Tom Hanks has disappointed you a lot in your youth.
I think Adam actually like wrote to his people trying to get him on the show. Like maybe on a lark he'll come on the show. I was like, I don't have a lot to say that Tom Hanks wants to hear. I demand you apologize for The Man with One Red Shoe right now, for the Money Pit right now. Like, the hell's wrong with you? You tell the Fonz that he's a good man.
This is, I think, Val Kilmer's first film, but this and his second film, which is Real Genius, which is even more well known. But he does comedy so well, like it looks almost effortless the way he does it, which is the exact opposite of what comedy. Comedy is very difficult. It's very hard work to make people laugh. I'm also kind of disappointed that like he tried to distance himself from those movies for so long. Like felt comedy was beneath him, and it was not only, it was great because we loved it. These films imprinted on both of us when we were children, and like I said, he is so great at doing it. And I think later on he kind of accepted it a little bit more, but his performance in this is just fantastic.
Well, what he's able to do that is so great is he is able to play comedically, but he's a great straight man.
Yeah.
He's like Leslie Nielsen, which is...
And Robert Stack.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and I think the modern equivalent is, what's his name? Don Draper.
John Hamm.
John Hamm is just so insanely funny. And a lot of it is just, he's so sincere in his comedy. Like I loved Fletch. He's fantastic in Kimmy Schmidt. He's known for the dramatic, and he, obviously he's fantastic dramatic. Being the total package like that's really difficult, like you said. Robin Williams could do it. And people were like surprised at his dramatic side versus the comedic, but it's two sides of the same coin. It's having that crazy range, and being more than like Robert De Niro in like Meet the Fockers or Meet the Parents or whatever. It's like the humor it's Robert De Niro
Yeah.
It's not really the performance so much as the persona. Whereas Val Kilmer, it is the performance and not the persona.
Yeah, I mean, that the persona comes later after this, and so.
But a lot of dramatists will switch to comedy, and like I'm thinking, was the Billy Crystal film where he was the Analyze This, like the humor of that. And I'm not saying it's a bad film or bad performances, but the humor is predicated not so much on De Niro's performance, but just relying
De
on
Niro's presence
in your presuppositions of De Niro, which it's gimmicky, I guess.
Yeah.
And again, like Analyze This is actually a really funny movie. I like it, but it is what it is.
I believe that's a Harold Ramis film too. So
I think so.
Yeah,
Analyze That, not quite as good.
And we've discussed this before. I don't know on this podcast, but you and I have another Harold Ramis film with someone who also does comedy and drama very, very well.
Multiplicity
with Michael Keaton. That's another one. Like Keaton's very good, and I think also what John Hamm and Val Kilmer do is they have a certain amount of charisma, but they make these characters kind of empathetic too, in a certain way. They're able to connect with audiences to the point where you're invested in these characters in some way or some form, no matter how silly the action or the comedy is.
Yeah, and a certain amount of that is just, they're good looking, but there is that intangible just charm that you can't really quantify. It's probably why they don't answer my letters.
So how do you use this, though, to gauge your interactions with other people? Like when you talk about this film or try and introduce it to them?
This is a film that it's not an early introduction. This is like a midpoint, right? Like they've
passed the other trials.
Yeah, yes, they've gone through the fire temple and the water temple. So now they got the boomerang and the grappling hook. But this, I would say, it's post-Napoleon Dynamite. Napoleon Dynamite is the World 1-1 on in the Mario Brothers complexity of my gatekeeping. Maybe they've gone through a warp zone. But I have to... This is one of those things where, I'm usually 80% sure you're going to like it before I recommend it, especially now that it really is... when we were younger, it was fairly well known, but even Airplane is kind of falling into obscurity. So I have to have a baseline of do stupid things cleverly presented, make you laugh. I guess would be my cue to introduce this. And if you don't like Top Secret, you're dead to me. Yeah. Kidding. Actually, our friend that whose wife got really upset at us when we showed her Top Secret. They're no longer together, so there you go. She did not pass the test.
So are we keeping that in? We're editing that out.
I don't know. I mean, neither one of them are going to listen, and if the one who our friend listens, he'll probably agree.
All right, so I want to move on to my film, and I've already slightly talked about it just in very general theoretical terms. This is definitely a movie like Top Secret. It's not out of the gate. You can't just, hey, how you doing? Here, watch this. There's years of build-up to this film. And like I said, it's not one of those that if they don't like it, I'm going to go, oh, I can't be friends with you. It's like, all right, well, this is as far as the friendship goes. You don't go any further. This is it. You don't get the VIP pass.
Yeah, the off-ramp is closed.
Yeah. This movie is a 2002, very small, independent, but also fantastic film. Bubba Ho-Tep.
gone from the king of rock and roll to this, old guy in a rest home.
You were an Elvis impersonator. You fell off a stage and broke your hip? When was it? 20 years ago.
That's where they took a piece of my brain. I got a little bag of sand up there now.
Jack, President Kennedy was a white man.
They dyed me this color. What we have here at Shady Rest is an Egyptian soul sucker of some sort.
Some kind of Bubba Ho-Tep.
You know, a mummy hiding out, feeding on the sleeping.
He can just keep on feeding unless he's finally destroyed.
All right, man, let's go.
Don't make me use my stuff on you, baby.
Now, this movie is just insane in its premise. It is based off a Joe R. Lansdale short story. It stars Bruce Campbell and Ozzie Davis, and it's directed by Don Coscarelli, who is the guy who created the Phantasm series of films, which, like, if you've not seen the first Phantasm, you have to see that as well. Like, that's another kind of like bonkers horror movie that really, I think, changed the landscape of the horror movies back in the late 70s, early 80s.
It's hot as love, baby.
But the concept of this film is that there is a man called Sebastian Haff who's living in an old folks home in East Texas. He's played by Bruce Campbell. And Sebastian Haff claims to be Elvis Presley. He says that in the 70s, he was kind of tired of the fame and all that, and he wanted to walk away for a bit. So he traded places with an Elvis impersonator named Sebastian Haff to have some peace and quiet for a while, and it's Sebastian Haff that died and left him stuck in this other life. And now he broke a hip while he was on stage performing one time, so now he's convalescing in this old folks home. One of the other residents of this home, played by Ozzie Davis. Google Ozzie Davis right now, image search him, because this is important. Ozzie Davis claims to be John F. Kennedy, and the fact that the CIA cut out a piece of his brain, and then they dyed his skin black, and stuck him in this old folks home. So you've got these two guys that are probably just completely nuts because they're senile, but they wind up bonding and believing each other's story. And so that's part of the story under there. So there you have this really weird comedy going on. And then at the same time, there is an ancient Egyptian mummy that's going through the old folks' home and is stealing the souls of the residents. But because they're old and they're almost near death themselves, the souls aren't much to feed him and keep him alive. So he keeps constantly having to do it. But because it's an old folks' home, it's not surprising that these people pass away. And so when one moves out, another one moves in. So he's essentially got this endless supply. And the only two people that have figured it out are Elvis and JFK. There's nothing I can say that will accurately describe this film.
No, and there are certain films. It's like when you and Super Marcy explained to me what the plot of Miami Connection, and it was like just my third eye opening up. I was like, "This sounds awesome," and it was, but in a different way. There are certain conceits that are just so brash that it's either going to be incredible or fall like a Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
This film soars. And I think a lot of it is so in a weird way, it's got, taking the unusual approach of the victims being in an old folks home versus summer camp or something. You know, there's a whole kind of different kind of frailty involved with that. But there are similarities. It'd be like, you know, nobody believes the kids. Well, nobody believes the old people either.
Exactly.
Right? So there's some interesting parallels there with traditional horror, but it's set in a unique way. There's some surprising philosophical discussions in the film.
Yeah, the main theme of it is essentially how we treat the elderly and infirmed, and how we kind of set them aside, and we put them in these places just waiting for them to die.
Right.
And also like the infantilization of them as well. You know, that's part of, he gets angry at the nurse for treating him like a child.
And just the nature of identity.
Yeah.
And relationship.
In the movies, I always played heroic types. But when the stage lights went out, it was time for drugs and stupidity and the coveting of women. Now it's time. Time to be a little of what I'd always fantasized being. A hero.
Hello?
Mr. Kennedy, ask not what your rest home can do for you. Ask what you can do for your rest home.
Hey, you're copying my best lines.
And let me paraphrase one of my own. Let's take care of business.
Just what are you getting at, Elvis?
I think you know what I'm getting at, Mr. President. We're gonna kill us a mummy.
There's some meat to the film, as well as being like, there's some genuine scares. It's a very heartfelt film in a weird way. It takes the bizarre premise, but it takes its own premise seriously, and not in like a A24 or, you know, like we're trying to be elevated horror. No, it's never looking down upon its subjects. You know, like you're in the trenches with them and sympathetic to their plight.
There is so much, like, it starts off with, we'll say Elvis waking up and looking over, and like the guy in the bed next to him just dying, like coughing his head off and then just passing away. And then after that, the guy's daughter shows up, and, you know, there's this conversation with the daughter. So, well, I've never seen you. She says, well, I've only been here once, and that was to check him in. And so you have those aspects of just abandoning that guy. Then she's throwing out his stuff, and he's like, well, can I have that? It was his Purple Heart. He was very proud of that, you know, and he talked about you a lot and all that kind of stuff. And she just kind of discarded him and left him in that home. And there is a great scene at the end as well, because there's another character that they call Kimosabe. It's another older man, and he dresses up essentially as the Lone Ranger. And he passes away at one point. You know, he's got the mask and all that kind of stuff, and Elvis picks up the mask. When they're going to confront the mummy, he's got his medicine bag, you know, like the Indians use. And, you know, he shows what's in it, and it's that Purple Heart, a picture of his daughter, and Kimosabe's mask. And he's like this powerful mojo. You know, and so, yeah, like you said, there's a lot of heartfelt bits to it. A lot of voiceover narration of Elvis, like his thought process, and like him learning or him figuring stuff out for himself. This movie, I saw it the first time I saw it actually in the theaters. Like, we had a group of friends, we had to drive to New Orleans to see it because it was such a limited release. It was a small indie film. And there's a theater actually in the mall on Canal Street, and they kind of do like these smaller films and foreign films and all that kind of stuff. So we drove down specifically to see this, and mostly because Bruce Campbell, you know,
our patron saint,
yes, and of course Don Coscarelli, because, you know, the Phantasm series and stuff like that. So we know he does good work. Love the film, and so when it came out on DVD, I bought the DVD. And I think I may have told this story here before, but what really kind of set me up as using this as something that I'll, you know, like lend out to people to see if they like it, actually has to do with your wife. We were roommates for a while, and the two of you showed up, and I was watching this movie, and you were like, I'm going to go get a shower, then we're leaving. All right, so she sat down on the couch across from me, and we just sat there and watched it. And I remember you come out, and you're ready to go, and then you wound up just sitting down, and we finished watching the movie. And then it was like 2 weeks later, I come in, and the two of you are sitting on the couch again, watching the movie. So I was like, all right, yeah, okay. So this is gonna work. Josh got a good one,
indeed, and she also is a huge fan of The Crow. We went and saw Maxine for my birthday, and the trailer for the new Crow comes on, and she goes, "I think I know how you feel every time you get upset over a remake now." I was like, it hurts, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It hurts when you're like, oh my God, they missed the point, didn't they? Like they didn't. They totally missed it.
And she discovered that film a lot later than we did too.
Yeah.
We were teenagers when it came out, and she saw it years later. I think when she was already in her 20s, wasn't it?
I think so. Yeah. And
I think that's what we figured out, because she fell in love with that, and it was Neil Gaiman, and it was like, oh, you're a late blooming goth.
Mm-hmm. I got her the graphic novel The Crow and like a bunch of Sandman for her birthday that year, and she devoured it all.
So yeah, it was after that experience though that I was like, yeah, I started lending it out to a select few number of people that were already kind of in not the premium, but the plus package level.
Jason without ads.
Yeah. So like I said, there were people that didn't really get it, and I understand that. And it was like, okay, sure, our friendship doesn't change. But then there were people that were like, that was great. I love that. I had lent it to one coworker. She had taken it home, and they were going to wait till the weekend to watch it, her and her husband. And part of the plot is that there is a growth on Elvis's penis, and he doesn't know if it's just a cyst or if it's cancer or what. And that's part of the little plot line there. But her husband worked construction, and he got rained out one day. And so he's just sitting at home with nothing to do, so he picked up the DVD and put it in. And she said she got home, and he ran out when he came out to meet her at the car like he usually does. And he was like, I started watching that movie. I stopped it. But there's Elvis. He's in a nursing home, and there's something on his pecker. We got to watch this movie tonight.
In the parlance of our home, them's good people.
If you get a copy of the DVD, there are 2 commentary tracks on it. And Josh and I already love Bruce Campbell commentary tracks to begin with.
Oh, yeah.
But one of them's a pretty straightforward. It's Don Coscarelli and it's Bruce Campbell. The second one is Bruce Campbell as Elvis watching the movie. And not the Elvis that he portrays in the film, but as if Elvis is watching this movie for the first time and he has like no context of what it is before going in. And I say that because he's got a great line, and it does kind of sum up this movie. Like a cell phone goes off in the middle of recording, so he answers it and he's talking to the other guy. And he's like, I don't know what this movie is. I don't know if it's a comedy, if it's drama, if it's a horror movie, or what. And that's true. Like, it hits all of those genres in just breakneck speed.
I would say it's like an adult Monster Squad.
Yes.
It's like it has that feeling to it. It's Monster Squad with more peckers.
No.
Put that on the marquee.
Put that on the DVD cover. Monster Squad with more peppers. The Brickedpit.
And that's why no one ever watched it. It's pretty famous within like the
it's got a cult following.
Yeah, the Uber nerd community loves it.
Yeah, it's got great reviews. I think it's like 79% or something like that on Rotten Tomatoes. And there was at one point they're even looking at doing a sequel, and I think it just kind of fell apart because I think Coscarelli kind of wanted to cut out Joe R. Lansdale, and Bruce Campbell wasn't really happy with that. But yeah, if you ever get a chance to watch it, it's fantastic. But only if you're comfortable with being just really outrageous and weird. Because it goes to all those places. Great performances, Ozzie Davis was a great character actor. He especially did comedy very well. The premise of him being JFK is just, it is fantastic. There's one point where Bruce Campbell, at pretty early on, when he first sees the mummy, kind of walks around and finds Ozzie Davis' character like laying down on the floor, and he's pretending to be dead so that the mummy will leave him alone, but he thinks he's an assassin. This might even be Lyndon Johnson himself. But Lyndon Johnson's dead. Hell, that won't stop him. It's got a lot of Joe R. Lansdale's voice, if you've ever read anything about Joe R. Lansdale, which is very East Texas, very much peppered with that way of speaking. A lot of southern areas have a particular way of forming thoughts and sentences, and he translates that to the page very well.
Indubitably.
So, Josh, what is this other film that I see here on the list?
Like, this is a movie in real life I talk about probably every day, so I don't know if we've ever really gone into depth on it.
We have not discussed this one, and I'm so happy that you've chosen this.
Oh, good, because you got an hour? This maybe... Did we watch this together for the first time?
Okay, so here's the story with this.
Oh, yeah.
I'll go ahead and drop the title of it doing this, but it was early days of Netflix, so you're still getting DVDs in the mail, and I had the service. This is a little movie called Gentlemen Broncos.
Dusty, I want you to meet Benjamin. But I noticed you didn't have any friends, so I signed you up for the Guardian Angel program at church.
Your mom's smoking hot. If I play my cards right, maybe someday I'll be your real guardian.
Good morning, homeschoolers. You're really gonna enjoy the best writers' camp in the state.
I'd like to introduce you to one of the greatest science fiction authors of our time, Ronald Chevalier.
I'm assuming you love to write fantasy fiction, except the character names in your stories are suffering. Need thou not be afraid? We can add Onius, Ainus, or Anus to just about anything, and it becomes magical.
So when are you gonna let me read one of your stories?
I've let my mom read a few, but they've just made her cry. You can read this. Bronco and Benai began their assault on the East Factory.
Bronco.
I am your soldier.
I'll cut to the chase. Unless you can give us something worth taking to print, we're just gonna have to let you go.
Bronco. I can do better. Broncanus. Forgive me. Cyclops there.
Cyclops there. Cyclops there. Turrets. Oh my holy crap. Surveillance does. I hate those.
It's fantastic. And I've already approved it for print.
Oh my gosh, is that the new Chevalier book?
You stole my story. Awesome. All you did was change the character names and turn Bronco into a tranny.
This is ridiculous.
Cookie! How about you come down here and fight me like a man?
Seize him. If there's one thing I can't stand, it's plagiarism. I'm completely distressed. I can't even concentrate on my audiobook narration.
Gentlemen Broncos.
I received it in the mail. And I was like, I know who would love to watch this movie. Josh. So I text Josh. Hey, what are you doing this weekend? And he's like, oh, I think we've got plans. Why? And I was like, well, I just got the Gentlemen Broncos DVD in the mail. And then the next text going, I'll get back to you in a minute. And like 5 minutes later, my wife says you can come over and bring the DVD. So,
yeah, so this is Jared Hess and Joshua Hess, the minds behind Napoleon Dynamite and
Nacho
Libre, both excellent films. This to me is like, honest to God, I think his magnum opus. It's
a masterpiece.
It is. Everything in it is near perfect. The story is there's this kid whose dad died, and he writes short stories. And when he writes the short stories, it cuts to the story. And the story he's writing is about Gentleman Bronco, who is essentially his fantasies about his dad. And it's very like 14-year-old, like the bad guy is trying to take his nads to make clones of Gentleman Bronco.
What the crap? Oh, my jams!
Sorry, Bronco. We had to borrow one of your gonads.
Dacius. I should have known it was you.
Oh, I'm not the real Lord Dacius. My name is Dennis. I'm one of his many clones. We're all very sorry. Lord Dacius sends his regards, but we're investigating ways to strengthen the military. Your gonad is being used for research.
You took my nads.
We only took one.
You took my nads, Dennis.
I know you're upset, but we plan to give it back. We'll be done with it very soon.
Darn you. Flippin' Dacius. Away from me with that. You hear me?
Relax, Bronco. This will ease the pain.
Sam Rockwell plays the titular Gentleman Bronco in these kind of flash-ins, I guess. I don't know what you would call them. These as someone's reading the story, it cuts to part of the movie, kind of like Princess Bride-esque, and he's like this big burly guy, and you're not taking my nads. It's just, and so his mom gets him sends him to writer's camp where his favorite.
We have to also put in, there's a very particular aspect of his education that informs a lot of this film.
Yes, he is homeschooled. So it's all these homeschoolers going to a writing camp where his favorite sci-fi author, who is played by Jermaine Clement, to just choose the scenery whenever he's on the screen is beautiful. And he meets this girl, and the names of the characters are even just like, they bring me joy. She has a friend named Donnie Lanahoe, and I just think that's one of the funniest names ever, because it's like almost plausible. She writes animal mysteries where she has 2 horses, one that is for riding in the city and one in the country, and so they all turn in their stories, and Jermaine Clement's character is like under a lot of pressure from his publisher to come up with a new book. So essentially he steals this kid's story, changes it enough.
You've got to give the name of his character.
Oh, hang on. What's his name?
Chevalier.
Oh, whenever you see the Gentleman Bronco story from Jermaine, from Chevalier's perspective, Gentleman Bronco is like very effeminate and has like short cropped wig. The kid also sells the rights to the movie to Lonnie Donahoe's Donahoe Studios. And so you get to see their kind of DIY version of the film. So there's this real rich texture of author voice and adaptation on top of just the absurdity of Napoleon Dynamite. So it's like Napoleon Dynamite with a very tight script. It's essentially what it is. Absolutely fantastic. What's her name plays the mom? Jennifer Coolidge plays his mom, and she is just pitch perfect as the really put upon. And they don't come out and say it, but they're pretty obviously Mormon. She hooks him up with this guy from the church to be like a masculine figure, and he's just kind of like this burnout dude named Dusty
with a pet snake.
Yeah. It's just, but there's just so many utterly bizarre choices, and it's very fever dream-esque in some ways, but also at the same time, there's a very coherent through line. It is certainly not to everyone's taste.
No.
If you did not like Napoleon Dynamite, this would be like kryptonite to you, because
this would be nails scratching on a chalkboard.
Yes, but if you love Napoleon Dynamite, this is like mainlining heroin. It's just, it's so of like, even though I wasn't raised in the same way as Hess was, I feel very represented on the screen at every moment. And it is like all the, embarrassing stuff that you want to bury. That's what I love about his filmmaking, is that he takes these things that are very personal and very embarrassing, and he celebrates them and is like unashamed. There's like a release to that. If you are of our generation, and we're a nerd, like, it's very freeing. So
it wasn't the horse mysteries. Wasn't that based off of his wife's?
Yes, his wife's like, I actually, this is 100%. I wrote horse mysteries when I was young.
And so she put that in the script.
And it's like, I mean, there's such a bravery to that.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if I wrote animal mysteries when I was in junior high, you would never know about it. I'd take that to the grave. It's such a bizarre film, but it is sincere.
Yeah.
And it is multi-layered. I would say the main kind of theme throughout it is storytelling and how we engage with fiction. One of the funniest things is the girl, who just seems kind of clueless and selfish, gives a very concise psychological reading of why he wrote this book.
Yeah.
Just like real man. And he's like, what? And he's like, well, your dad died when you were young. And this, it's like very like, your gasp. That's exactly what this is.
Yeah. Also, like, it sets that stuff up. Like, when she says it, it's not a surprise. Like, if you're paying attention, because like he shows a picture of his dad, and his dad has like this big burly beard, and
he looks like Gentleman Bronco.
Yeah, all that's kind of weaved in there. And the fact I think his dad was like a ranger, so you have all these like deer and stuff like that are used throughout in very weird and imaginative ways.
There's some of the funniest lines. So like Gentleman Bronco in the story like eats yeast to give him powers, and there are apparently yeast factories and slaves, and he meets up with this girl that they had sucked at her mother's breast when they were children. It's all very cringy, like 14-year-old trying to be edgy and sexual. But the absolute funniest euphemism for sex ever is Gentleman Bronco, played by
Sam Rockwell.
Sam Rockwell looks her dead in the eyes and says, "Take me to your yeast factories."
And Sam Rockwell is already one of my favorite actors, and the way he does these two completely different roles, and just they're both just so fantastic the way he does them. In an
interview, he's like, I read the script, and he's like, I got it. He said, a lot of people didn't get it. And he said, I talked to Jared, and he was like, yeah, you get it. It's like, that's awesome. Like, they were just really firing on the same wavelength. It's amazing. It's just an amazing film that a very small select like, there's a reason why nobody really talks about this film, because it is not for everyone. I don't know what other genre I could like compare a film to that's really a narrow band of what people like. I mean, so like maybe like Eli Roth and horror films is it's a very particular type of horror film, and it's not for everyone. So if you don't like that kind of thing, you're not going to like Hostel or whatever torture porn he's creating, or Human Centipede. Not that was his, but it's like
that vein. Yeah,
it's a very narrow audience, and I think that's another thing I like about it. I think he had gotten enough cachet from Napoleon Dynamite to make some films that he wanted. That's what he wanted to say, And I feel
Nacho Libre, because
and Nacho Libre is also, I think, brilliant. I love Nacho Libre, but I think Gentleman Bronco is better.
Yes.
The only way you get to make those films is you accidentally hit a home run with the zeitgeist with Napoleon Dynamite. Otherwise, no, they just wouldn't have been made.
I think the great hook that he has in his films is that despite how kind of like weird and offbeat they can be, they're very human.
Mm-hmm.
They all reach into some desire for either acceptance or, some other connection with other people that I think most people kind of understand and latch on to. That's the thing with Gentleman Bronco. Like, you have this outrageous story, like these outrageous characters, and the Gentleman Bronco story, and then the Broncanus story of Chevalier as he messes around with it. But like you said, it's about writing and our connection to it, and like how he was kind of pouring these things into it, even though he didn't realize it. And like, why this character and these stories were important to him, it was more than just the fact that someone else was getting the credit for it. It was the fact that they had taken something that was a part of him.
Exactly. Yeah, and how personal storytelling can be. In a lot of ways, it's kind of a antithesis to postmodernism, and that authority matters. Again, it's a sincere film. And like most of his other films, they're weird, but they're not cynical. And I think that also, like in this day and age, is still so rare. We live in a world of cynical Superman films. It's nice to see something that is sincere and uncynical.
How do you use this then in your gauging of friends?
This is like the final battle.
This is what Goro and Mortal Kombat.
This is like the secret level, like when you like knock Goro off into the spikes, and nobody believes that you can do it. And I think the kid was in the same. It was also in Sky High.
Yeah,
Sky High might be the mini boss for Gentleman Bronco, but it has similar feel to it. Those are things that like I pray for, like when I hear about like, oh, they're going to do a Sky High where they're the teachers and stuff. I'm like, those are things I talk to God about at night. Like, could you make this happen? Can we greenlight that? I do not recommend this film often unless I think I have a really good idea of your humor. Like, I don't know if Adam has seen this film, and I don't know if I would recommend it to Adam.
Yeah, he would have to go through the previous levels before, Napoleon Dynamite and Nacho Libre.
Yeah, I know we've talked. He likes Napoleon Dynamite because we talked about how it broke the Netflix algorithm.
Yeah,
but it's kind of, everybody likes Napoleon Dynamite. So
well, it's kind of like Nirvana's Nevermind album. That's the pop album. Everyone likes the pop album.
Are you saying that Gentleman Bronco is the in utero of?
Yes, it's the better album.
Films?
Yeah,
Joshua Hess also made probably my favorite chick flick. She made a film called Austin Land that has the other half of Fly the Conchords, Brit. Can't remember his last name.
Which we have also discussed on the
yeah.
This is a movie I think that actually made our friendship stronger. Like the fact that we all, no, the three of us, like watching it also with your wife, like it is a movie that really kind of lets you know the headspace of the people you're watching, especially when we're all three so excited to watch this. I don't know anyone else who shared our enthusiasm for this film. I don't know even if Jared and Joshua S. were excited about this film as we were.
No, it was a very exciting day. That and the day Black Dynamite came to the mail. Those were good days.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say that if you've listened this far and to our podcast, there's a fair chance if you haven't seen Gentleman Bronco that you would like it, unless you're listening out of obligation.
So no, that's not going to be Adam. He doesn't listen if he's not involved.
I think those that listened out of obligation bowed out years ago because every Christmas, are you still doing that podcast? I don't know. Maybe I don't know. It's just easier to do it like.
Yeah, a great film. Can't recommend it enough if you're into that Jared Hess vibe. It's a very distinctive vibe. I would say almost kind of like a Paul Thomas Anderson film. It has a very distinctive vibe to it.
Yeah. Unlike Wes Anderson, it's not pretentious.
All right, so just very briefly, I want to kind of go in the other direction. I was kind of debating whether or not to do this, but what the hell? Let's go for it. Let's just throw it out there. No big introduction or anything like that. Let's just talk about the Transformers movies.
The cartoon, the real movie.
No, the Michael Bay, because I love the old one, man. The animated that.
Oh yeah.
We both grew up a little watching that film. But I just want to talk about on the opposite edge of that. Now, I'm not going to not be friends with you if you like the Transformers movies.
It puts a note in your file.
Yes. Every time you walk up, a pop-up shows up, likes the Transformer Michael Bay movies.
There's a stamp in your dossier. It's like, oh my God.
Hey, here's the thing. We've talked about this before. We like bad movies, but we recognize the bad movies that we like are bad movies. And so my only problem with the Transformer fans are the ones who don't realize that it's a bad movie.
This is very personal to you, I believe.
What? No, it's just the experience I've had with actually some of our friends.
I know.
And one continuing that I'm pretty sure doesn't listen to the podcast either.
Yeah.
Because he's always like, oh, you don't like that movie and all. It's like, it's not my Transformers. I grew up in the 80s playing with the toys, reading the comics, watching the cartoon. That's my Transformers. That's what I grew up with. They were actual characters in the comics. Bumblebee. People like Bumblebee not because he was a Volkswagen Bug. That's a terrible car to be. When you've got, a semi and Lamborghinis.
Could not be a car designed by the Nazis.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
But Bumblebee was liked because he was the bridge between the humans and the other Transformers. There were a lot of times when even Optimus was like, hey, this isn't our fight. We've got to go. And Bumblebee was like, no, we brought the Decepticons here to Earth. So it's our responsibility to protect the humans.
He's definitely because you had Spike and Daniel and Sparkplug.
Yeah.
And then you had Bumblebee was their bud, and he was also bud with he was definitely that bridge between the two worlds. So in many ways are, as the viewers, bridge into the world of the Transformers. Not to speak too seriously about something that doesn't matter, but that is the podcast.
Yeah.
In a nutshell.
But that's devoid in the Michael Bay movies. They're not really characters. They're just scenery.
Yes, and I think that is pretty much Bay's MO, because didn't he do that turtle movie that was...
He produced it, which actually, I'm going to probably confuse you on this, but I actually liked the Ninja Turtles movies he did.
Really?
Yeah, I think it was very much like, this is not going to surprise you, but like the 1990 to me is like the best one, because it split the baby right between the comic book and the cartoon.
It stands up very well.
And the latest one, Mutant Mayhem, I actually watched that on a plane. Like, that's really good too.
Mutant Mayhem was I took my daughter to see it last year in the theater. I think while my oldest and my wife went to see Barbie, and we were both like, "Holy crap, this is awesome!" I thought it was very good.
Yeah, and I think what Mutant Mayhem did, like the live action did well, is it did make them like believable teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's one scene where they're riding in the elevator and they just start beatboxing. Everything is like, oh, I didn't like the photorealistic CGI for the turtles like that.
Yeah, their character design was less than desirable.
And the second one was good too, and I liked in the second one where they decided, yeah, let's go for it. Here's Krang. Like, let's go just weird, bebop and rock steady. Let's just fly right into this. Okay. And so it was fun. But like I said, and they were characters. That's the main point. Right. They were characters, and the Transformers weren't characters in the Michael Bay films. They were plot devices. They were stupid, lewd jokes. I couldn't get into it, but at the same time, I was just like, this isn't my movie. These aren't my Transformers anymore. It's, if a new generation loves them, that's fine. Let them sell the toys to the current, 10-year-olds.
I honestly, I don't know how. They obviously made a ton of money, so they were
because they're still making them.
Yes, they will not stop making them. It's like Michael Bay is become like a computer simulation. It's like, how does he keep making movies? He should be dead by now. It's like they keep cranking out Michael Bay's from his algorithm, but people go and watch them. So my complaints with it are, again, very thin on plot. It's all action, and that's not, it's like you could say that about a Jackie Chan film, but I can at least see what's happening in Jackie Chan film. And I think what I don't like about the films is they kicked off a trend of like, yes, let's make all the action dark and blurry and fast, so you don't know what the hell's going on. It's like, why did I even pay money for this?
Yeah,
like it's just colorful blurs. Yeah, I could close my eyes and like rub my eyelids and get the same effect.
And also, that is just to hide the fact that we're saving money by not fully rendering these CGI characters.
Right.
Yeah. To get to your point, though, but even in like stupid plot Jackie Chan movies, like Jackie Chan is still a character. Like, he's a paper thin character at times, but there's still like, as we said before, there's a bit of charisma there with Jackie Chan himself that makes you invested in him.
I mean, that was not a knock on Jackie Chan's films at all, but I mean, it wasn't even a criticism, really. No. But it's an objective fact.
Yes,
they're pretty thin on plot, and the reason you see a Jackie Chan film is for the action. I don't think Jackie Chan's going to argue that. Jackie, see,
but my problem, though, with the Transformers movies are the fans, because I had people that kept telling me, you have to see this movie. It's like, I've already seen it, and I'm still not talking about it, so that should tell you something. You can enjoy this movie. I have no problem with that. You're free to enjoy what you want. I'm not going to grade you on that, but the people who are like, these are the best movies ever, that I'm going to grade you on. If you think this is the pinnacle of cinema, then we have an issue. If you think that all movies should be like this, then that's where I'm going to kind of divest myself of your presence, because as we've mentioned before, like I love cinema. Cinema's a big part of our lives. We grew up on it, and there's attachment to it. And I do think like it can be anything that the artist wants it to be or the audience wants it to be. It doesn't have to fit a particular mold, but when you try to do that in either direction, that's when I kind of started wanting to move away from you. I'm the same way with like the overly artsy, people that, oh no, the movies must make you cry.
Mm-hmm.
No, they could just make me happy because they're blowing stuff up. Like I'm pretty cool with the mindless action films too.
Right. So, in any art, there's high and low art. That's not a value judgment in like whether you like it or not. But, I think to be intellectually honest, you do have to. There is a difference between They Live and There Will Be Blood.
Yeah.
But you can enjoy them both, or one or the other, and it doesn't invalidate either one of them as being art. And that's why we talk about the movies versus film a lot. Just that's my personal delineation between the two. But like I love watching Joe Bob Briggs stuff. Him as a bastion of the drive-in trashy movie. Like there's a place for that. There's a reason why those films are made and are popular. And I don't think there's. In fact, we watched the remake of Suspiria with Tilda Swinton and I think Dakota Johnson. I was like, this movie's pretty sexless, and that's kind of a bad thing because it's like it's a remake of an Argento film. Like,
yeah,
that's baked into the product. Like, if it's not there, it's a glaring omission. Like,
it's like buying an Oreo and there's no filling.
Right. Or asking for Coke and they give you a Diet Coke. You're like, what? Where's the sugar at?
Or even worse, Pepsi.
Yes.
It's like, okay, technically it looks the same, but it doesn't taste the same.
Yeah, I'm like, this is a remake of an Italian horror film. There needs to be a little sleaze in this. It's just, and that's why, like, Maxine is in that vein of film, and is, you're like, all right, there's a little sleaze, and it's not trying to be high art. I actually read an article where this critic was lamenting Ty West basically wasting his time by slumming it and making all these like slasher films and stuff, and I was like, man, come on. Like, let that dude do what he wants to do, and he does it well.
Yeah,
like, we need more people of that quality and caliber making films like this and raise everybody up.
Well, I mean, and you have the people in those fields, like the Wes Cravens and George Romero's and all that kind of stuff, who worked not exclusively but predominantly in those areas, and they did wonders for the genre.
Oh yeah.
I remember when Transformers, the third one, came out.
Transformers the third.
Yeah. And people were trying to get me to go and watch it. And, of course, my excuse was like, well, I missed the second one. I don't want to be lost with all that great character development that Michael Bay is known for. But I literally, at one point, like, I got tired of it. And I was like, okay. Because a group of friends would tell me, you got to see it while it's still there. You got to see it. It's like, all right, sell me on it. And so then they started telling me, like, the film and, like, all these parts that they thought were great about it. And when they would say it, I'm like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I have friends who like the films, the Transformer films, and I don't necessarily knock them, but it's kind of like when you got into soccer and you kept trying to convince me to get into soccer. And I was like, no, I'm not interested in soccer.
I mean, I wouldn't say there's direct parallel there, but I'm with you.
But the more you try to convince me that I would like something that I know for a fact that I'm not going to like,
you're digging in.
Yeah.
Okay, I can live with that. Well, yeah, I just was it one of the Transformers peed oil on John Turturro, and it's like it's played for laughs, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, man, like I'm embarrassed for everybody involved in this, and I feel very sad that it's like I know John Turturro is getting paid, but like,
so why'd you do that to John Turturro?
Yeah, it's like, why would you ever do that to John Turturro? How dare you?
That man was in Miller's Crossing.
That's to Jesus.
Yeah, I think the second or third one had the Transformer with like testicles, like swinging about. Yeah, like all right.
Well, and the whole stupid thing of Bumblebee not being able to talk and like,
yeah, that was that's one of those really weird because they were telling me because I did watch the first one because I was
they were trying to sell you on that like as a bonus.
No, but I did watch the first one. Anyone who's watched the Transformer movies and loves it, correct me if I'm wrong on that. But I do remember, like, at the end of the first one, like, they fixed the issue with his voice, whatever.
They fixed the glitch.
Yeah, so he could actually talk. And then, like, the second movie, he can't anymore because no one thought about doing the sequels. Like, that was real popular. Let's just go back to that.
The reason we'll never be, like, a top 10 podcast is because
we make fun of Transformers, the movie.
Yeah, well, yeah, and Michael Bay. So,
yeah.
And the world at large apparently thinks Michael Bay is great. He makes $1 billion movies.
Yeah.
So and we make podcasts in the basement. But boy, I don't like that. I don't like it from any angle.
Transformers, if you like it, it's not that we can't be friends. But
we just can't be good friends.
Yeah, exactly. We're not going to talk about movies. We're going to talk about something else. Yeah, we're going to find another topic that links us.
Or at least talk about different movies.
Yeah. All right, so if people want to tell us if Bumblebee could talk or not at the end of the Transformers movie, Josh, how would they do that?
Well, the easiest way to reach us is through Facebook or X. We have pretty decent social media presence. If you want to email us, brickpit@gmail.com. You can also go to linktr.ee/brickpit and find links to everything. I would really encourage you, if you have made it this far, there is no secret code. Drink your Ovaltine. But we do appreciate you listening. We would love to hear from you because feedback it's the life force for the vampire that is the Brick Pit. Just like Jason mentioning stuff from the podcast last week, I know he was listening. It's always awesome to hear people talk, and we do have people that do respond to us a lot on social media. We appreciate them. Patrick. But that's how you can find us. Out there in the wild. In the dark.
Well, until next time, this is the Brick Pit signing off.